There we go.
Okay, I don't know if you need to zoom
We're on
in or out
23,
any.
Morty.
Well, welcome. We're on lesson 23. That's on page 115 through 125 in your book. The Bible text is on pages 116 and 117, and the lesson notes pages start on page 118 through 123. Jesus arrives in Galilee. We're going to talk about rejection and healing tonight. And here is our little map. We've got Jesus down here at Jacob's well, and Jerusalem is way down below the picture there. And the road from Jacob's well up to Cana follows on over towards Bezek and then to Bethhagen, and then up through Nazareth, Sepphoris, and then over to Cana. And we're going to end up there by the time we get done. And this is, if I remember right, a picture of Nazareth.
Beautiful.
No, let's see. No, that'd have to be Cana. This has got to be a picture of Cana.
Pretty.
They'll tell you in the book, and I'll say, whoops, why didn't I look there first so I wouldn't embarrass myself.
City of Cana.
City of Cana.
Today?
As it looks today.
It looks like Cana.
Yes, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a camera back there 2,000 years ago.
12 years ago.
So, we'll settle for this one. That's
Still
what
looks
it
like
looked 12
something
years
out of the
ago.
past.
Yep.
It hadn't changed the whole one.
Next time you become ill and need surgery or a serious medical condition, wouldn't it be nice if you could just get that help without having to go to the doctor's office? Anybody in favor of that?
Yes.
Let's see now. The rest of you didn't raise your hand are either too ill or you're in denial.
We're in denial.
No, you can't be there. That's in Egypt,
That's
so
a
you're
good
not
one,
there.
Egypt.
So, okay. Well, yeah, you know, we always want to just pop a pill and make it better. Pop a pill and fix the problem. I don't want to have to go through a long process. It's one of the challenges we're facing with getting to know Jesus. People want to just pop a pill. Okay, I know Jesus now. I don't need to do anything else. It's not going to happen. You husbands, you still know your wives? Some of you have been married a good long while. You're still learning, aren't you? And you wives, you're still figuring out your husbands and trying to change them. And it's, you'll be doing that for the rest of your life.
She's still working on me, asking me what I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. Guys want to control their gals want to change their men, and it doesn't work. So, but we have fun trying. But we're always looking for the instant fix. Sometimes a fix takes exercise. Sometimes it's a process. It's a journey, not a destination. And same with healing. But how much would we love to be able to just call the doctor up, hey, send me a pill and I'll be fine. And doctor says, no, you got to come in, I got to look you over. And he looks you over and says, oh, well, the one little pill ain't going to get it, you're going to have to take this for the rest of your life, or we're going to have to do surgery, and then you're going to have to do physical therapy, and then you're going to have to watch your diet, and then you're going to have to do this. And that's not what I want. I want to get healed now, I want to be done with, and I don't want to have to go back and never do it again. Well, oh boy, and you'd like to be able to do it without the doctor even having to come visit. Well, Jesus gets the news that John the Baptist has been put in prison because he spoke against Herod marrying his brother's wife. We'll cover this in a future lesson. So right now Jesus arrives in Galilee some 6 months after the feast of the Passover. So if we would go back to the timeline, about halfway through his first year of ministry. He basically said, that's enough of Judea for now. I'm going to Galilee. And for the greater part, the rest of his ministry will be spent around Galilee. First of all, Jesus has to protect himself. Matthew chapter 4, verse 12, Mark chapter 1, first part of verse 14, Luke 4, verses 14 and 15, and John 4, verses 43 and 45. When Jesus heard that John had been put in prison, he returned to Galilee in the power of the Spirit, Luke says. Now, here we go. Over in John, after 2 days. So, if we go earlier in chapter 4 of John and find out what the preceding event was, here we go. 2 days later, Jesus says, I think I'm going up to Galilee. a little less trouble up there. Isn't it interesting that the Son of God, with all the power and knowledge that he had, did not hang around trouble when he didn't need to? Now, when it was around and he had to confront it, he was not the least bit afraid to confront it, but again, that's another lesson. So, let's continue over here at John. Now, Jesus himself had pointed out that a prophet has no honor in his own country. When he arrived in Galilee, the Galileans welcomed him. They had seen what he had done in Jerusalem at the Passover feast, for they also had been there. So Jesus, even though he's only been at it 6 months, they were there for the feast of the Passover. He's developed a bit of a reputation. And so when he gets back to Galilee, they're already cluing in on him. Luke finishes up saying, and the news about him spread through the whole countryside, and he taught in their synagogues, and everyone praised him. Jesus' return after John's arrest suggests that he wants to make himself a little less available to Herod, lest his purpose be interrupted. Herod has kind of laid out some sort of a hint that he's interested in Jesus, maybe wanting to stop him from doing anything more. So Jesus just avoids him. You know, sometimes that's the thing to do, is just to avoid trouble. I used to go do a 2-mile walk around our neighborhood in California, and when I'm out walking and I see somebody, I say hi. I just, hello, or God bless. There was one guy that every time I said hi, he would just get angry at me. And don't talk to me! And I'm just trying to be nice. The guy had a mental problem, and I finally decided the best way to handle the mental problem is to, his route was consistent. I could pick within about a 2-minute window of when he would be passing through that section where I was walking. So I just timed my walk either to go the other direction, so by the time I went through there he was already gone, or go early enough to get past, or late enough that he'd already gone, and I avoided him.
Terrible.
Sometimes you just have to avoid the situation.
He's a crazy guy.
Have you ever felt, let's see, Jesus is in the life-saving business, so life-changing business. How has he changed your life? Have you ever felt such a strong urging to do something or somewhere to go do something? Could that urging be the Holy Spirit maybe working on your life? But John mentions, the Apostle John mentioned that a prophet is seldom accepted in his own neighborhood. And sometimes there's exceptions to that rule. Sometimes the boy can grow up, go to college, and come back home and do very well and be very accepted. But sometimes they'll say, oh, I knew you when. There's no way you can be that now. And they will reject you. And so there can be boundaries to that. And of course that's what Jesus ran into. The community that he grew up in was so close to him being anything other than just a carpenter's son that he just didn't have a good reception when he went back there. Of course, this could also be a reference to the resistance Jesus experienced in Jerusalem. Jerusalem was not that great and eager and quick to embrace him. It took them a while. Actually, some of them kind of caught on to it. Some of them never caught on to it. We'll catch on that as we go through. Jesus will later make the same observation of his reception in Nazareth where he grew up. It is a sad commentary when we reject someone because we knew him or her when in the past, instead of accepting him or her now. But then, you know, depending on how the person has treated you in the past or your connection with them, it might be hard. Reasonably understandably so, it might be hard to accept them today after what they were back then. So, yeah, some of that's a little bit understandable. But we also know that Jesus changes people's lives. And so the guy that you used to know that was a drunken alcoholic or a drug addict or who knows what else may have actually let Christ come in and taken up that banner and may have actually changed. Sometimes we have to kind of trust and verify, but It's always a challenge. In each situation, you kind of have to work through on yourself. But it is sad when we say, well, that person was that way and they are still that way. I've gone back to some of my classmates in high school on Facebook and classmates.com, and I find out that they're not the person, at least the way I see them today is not the way I saw them 45 years, 50 years ago. So, and I bet if they looked at me, they'd say, yep, he's not, well, he is, and yes, he isn't. And I can say some ways which I am and some ways which I'm not. Well, the whole process, the Galileans seemed to be a lot more receptive to Jesus coming and teaching among them because they saw what he did in Jerusalem at the Passover, and they told others about him. So anybody from Galilee that did not make it to Jerusalem, they've heard word of mouth. Best advertising you could ask for. Best advertising our church will ever get is word of mouth. Hey, come in and visit our church and see what God is doing in our church. And that will win more people to our church and to Christ than all the billboards and all the other stuff that we could try to do. Wealth cannot buy health here. So John 14 verses 46, John chapter 4 verses 46 and 47. Once more he visited Cana in Galilee, where he had turned water into wine, and there was a certain royal official whose son lay sick at Capernaum. When this man heard that Jesus had arrived in Galilee from Judea, he went to him and begged him to come and heal his son, who was close to death. So wealth cannot buy health.
That's right.
Jesus returns to Cana of Galilee, where he had changed the water into wine at a wedding ceremony. Not too long ago, we remember that. John told us about it. The word has gone around the region that Jesus is in the area. Now, a royal official from Capernaum, whose son is sick, hears about Jesus, and he goes to Cana to ask him to heal his son. Is there a father here who would not, if your son were ill, do just about anything and everything he possibly could to get healing for his son? If you know there's anything you can do. And evidently the miracles that Jesus did in Jerusalem when he was there for the Feast of the Passover has spread back through, and they were talking about it. And this guy in Capernaum hears about it. A royal official hears about it. Hears that Jesus is over there in Cana, and he does what most fathers would do. I want my child to live. I want him healed. Now the road from Capernaum to Cana is about 18 to 25 miles uphill. About 2,000 foot change in elevation. That's going to be a good 6 to 8 hours walk by foot. And depending on how healthy your walking legs are, to exactly how much time that's going to take you. At first, Jesus balks at the request because many people are more impressed with the sensationalism and they want a miracle instead of the enduring hard labor that makes for success. Instead of doing the exercise, I need to get my weight down and keep my heart healthy. I just want to sit down and watch TV and take a pill. Well, that's the attitude of some people. Sometimes the better thing takes more effort. But it's better for you in the long run. So, Jesus' hesitancy has nothing to do with the man's position. Notice this isn't a royal official. Number one, the guy's got some status in the community. Number two, he's got some money. Most royal people are at least a little more than your average affluent. Rich, in other words. So, hey Jesus, come heal my son. We don't have any record at all that he tried that. But he could if he thought it would have been appropriate. Maybe he realized that that wouldn't be appropriate. Can you accept people regardless of their race, vocation, social status, or wealth? I'm going to brag on my wife for just a minute. Because I have observed her with people of high status. I've observed her with people that were homeless or in a nursing home and of low status. And she is one who can truly accept people as a person, not as a, oh, you're rich, I like you, and you're dirty and poor, and I don't want to be around you, and that sort of thing. So, yeah, just a little testimony to her. She's worth it. Well,
Keep quiet.
at this point in his life, Jesus' popularity is more for what he has done than for who he is. Faith in Jesus as a miracle worker is not the same as faith in him as the Son of God, our Lord and Savior. So we can have faith in Jesus for all sorts of reasons, but there's good reasons and there's not so good reasons.
It's okay. Need some water?
Sometimes Jesus has to work on us before he can work for us. Let me rephrase that. Sometimes Jesus has to work on us before he can work for us or through us. And so I'm constantly examining my life. And I hope you are too. Am I doing what you want me to do? Is this where you want me to be at this time? Well, now we can go on to Jesus can heal without even being there. John chapter 4, verses 48 through 50. Jesus says to this royal official, unless you people see miraculous signs and wonders, Jesus told him, you will never believe. The royal official said, sir, come down before my child dies. Jesus replied, you may go, your son will live. The man took Jesus at his word and departed. Now, all he really knows about Jesus, unless he happened to be one that was down there in Jerusalem for the Feast of the Passover and happened to see Jesus then, all he knows is what other people have told him. And he has traveled basically most part of a day's journey uphill to get to Cana, and Jesus doesn't say, oh, well, okay, I'll come with you. Jesus says, go home, your son's going to be fine. What makes you think my son's going to be fine? You haven't even looked at him. That's like saying, hey doctor, I got a problem. Oh, don't worry, I'll call a prescription into the pharmacy, you'll be just fine. But doctor, I haven't even told you what my problem is. Who cares? You just pay for this prescription and the pharmaceutical company will like you, and it'll either heal you or it'll kill you. If it kills you, you're not a problem anymore. If it heals you, then you're great, and if it doesn't, you'll call me back and I'll give you another prescription. Spend more of your money. I'm picking on doctors right now, but not all doctors are like that, so I better be careful here. I might offend a doctor that's watching Getting to Know Jesus, and he'll cancel his subscription, and that's the end of that. But Jesus can heal without being there. The official came to Jesus because he believes that Jesus can heal his son. He continues to plead with Jesus to come to Capernaum and heal his son. He's persuaded that the only hope for his son is for a miracle for healing by Jesus. Now, there's been times, I'm sure, that you've thought the only way that we're going to get out of this situation is for a miracle from God. The only way that we could buy a house right now was for a miracle from God. And we got, I want to say 5 of them. So we're great. We're in another situation right now where the only way we're going to get out of it is a miracle from God. And maybe we'll get it, maybe we won't. God will be glorified regardless. And I'm sure there have been situations in your life, maybe you're in right now, where the only way I'm going to get through this is a miracle from God.
Every day.
Well, obviously this official believed the same thing. He went to the source and talked to him about it. He's persuaded the only hope for his son is a miracle. He has ample access to doctors. He has the money to pay the doctor's bills, but evidently they have been unsuccessful, or the situation of his son is so serious that he knows the doctors can't deal with it. So, well, Jesus' reply is for him to go home. His son will be okay. And look at this. He trusts Jesus, which is a step of faith, and he leaves. Now here's a good point to remember. Faith equals the key. Trust equals the lock. Obedience equals putting the key in the lock and turning it. Now, we've talked about obedience before. It's one of my little pet words, isn't it? And we're going to talk about faith. But if you don't have enough faith to trust, put the key in the lock, You can turn that key all you want, but if it's not in the lock, it ain't going to do anything. You can put it in the lock. But if you don't turn it, it's not going to do anything. We've got to back our trust up with obedience. So some people would say, oh, but wait a minute, that's a work, and you can't get saved by works. Well, that's another discussion.
Morty and his hand up.
Morty, I'm sorry?
The word faith in every case refers to trust in the New Testament. Because that's what the meaning of faith is.
Yeah.
You just can't have one without the other.
You can't have one without the other. And it's true not only in accepting, but it's true in obedience as well. Greek words teach that.
It's a great word. And maybe probably the most important thing we need to remember out of this lesson tonight, although hopefully you might get something else besides that.
Well, in the original language is what's called action start. And the action start of that word faith involves action.
Yeah. Faith without action
That's pistos.
isn't faith.
It's pistos, that's what that is.
Yeah. The Greek word pistos. Okay, well, there are some, even the noblest leaders and the most affluent and powerful are reduced to beggars in the presence of Jesus. Notice that? Royal official with all the money and all the power to do anything and buy anything he wanted, but here he's coming begging to Jesus. There are some situations that only God can heal, but most of the time He uses doctors and medicine to do it. We just got news of a friend that passed away yesterday. They put her in hospice on Monday. She went to the hospital a week before. Was it 1 week, Sylvia?
8 days.
She'd been in the hospital 8 days. She had been finding symptoms of illness or discomfort for, what was it, 2 years? Finally got so bad that her son insisted, Mom, you got to go to the hospital. And got to the hospital, got to the doctor. Doctor, you got to put her in the hospital. You can't send her home. Did a couple of tests. She had cancer. It had gone from her breast down to the kidney. And liver. And here she's gone. Well, the good news of it is she loved Jesus. The bad news is if she had paid attention to the doctors a little sooner, she could have lived. We had another friend in California who had breast cancer and denied it. Oh, she said, God has revealed to me that He's going to heal me. He did. But she's no longer with us. She's in heaven. She's healed. She loved Jesus. But she did not go to the doctors. And by the time she finally went to the doctors, it was too far along. They couldn't do anything for it. So we need to realize that sometimes God might choose to do it without the doctors. But it's a wise man and a wise woman who says, you know what, this isn't right. I better go get it checked out.
I can cite an instance where God chose to do it. My wife, Clarice, had an uncle that was diagnosed with prostate cancer back when he was middle-aged. And they told him if he didn't get surgery, he would die. He said, I'm not going to have surgery. God's going to heal me. He refused surgery. God did heal him.
Yeah.
And he lived for many years cancer-free.
Well, cancer is not always a killer.
That's right.
And there are exceptions. I've heard some people have been able to do a lot to get over cancer just by changing their diet. And stress influences cancer a lot too. So, but that's another subject. But the bottom line is sometimes we do need to admit, Doc, tell me what to do here. Doc, tell me what's wrong, and now what do we have to do to fix this? Can we fix it? Sometimes it can't be fixed. You know what? The worst thing is not that you can't be healed. The worst thing would be if you don't know Jesus.
That's right.
Now, it'd be nice to be healed. We'd all like to stick around a little bit longer. But if God calls us home tonight, we know Jesus, what's the problem?
Yeah.
The world will have to carry on without us. And by the way, those of you that are in the Getting to Know Jesus class, if you go home tonight, you'll get all the homework and all the lessons and all of that thing done when you get to heaven, and you won't have to worry about whether you pass the class or not. So, the rest of us are going to linger around and work at it 1 week at a time and continue the journey with Jesus. Well, here is proof of Jesus' power. John chapter 4, verses 51 through 54. While he was still on the way, his servants met him with the news that his boy was living. And he inquired as to the time when his son got better. They said to him, the fever left him yesterday at the 7th hour. the father realized that this was the exact time at which Jesus said to him, "Your son will live." So he and all his household believed. This was the second miraculous sign Jesus performed, having come from Judea to Galilee. The second miraculous sign, now, I think that kind of qualifies it there. Not the second miraculous sign he performed, period, but the second miraculous sign he performed in Galilee. Well, let's see what we have here. As a royal official from Capernaum is returning home, some of his servants are traveling to Cana to tell him that the boy is okay. Now we said 6 to 8 hours uphill. He gets there late in the day. Finds Jesus. Finally gets access to Jesus. Says, "Please come, my son is dying." Jesus says, "Your son is going to be okay." Now he must have camped out for the night. Must have been late enough in the day. He camped out somewhere. In town, stayed with somebody, found a shade tree under the, well, shade tree at night, right. Found a tree under to sleep under or something, and he's headed home the next day. And the next day the servants are headed up the hill and they meet somewhere. Close to Cana, close to Capernaum, we don't know. But they meet. "Hey, your son's going to be all right." "Oh, when did he start getting better?" "Yesterday, about the 7th hour. That was just when Jesus told me he would get better. Wouldn't that be awesome? You go home, "I'm not sure about my son." You're starting down the hill, headed towards the house. You're not sure about your son, and here comes the servant saying, "Hey, he's going to be okay. Your son's going to be okay." And you find out, and you realize that's just when Jesus said he would be okay. The official inquires about the boy, and when the boy got better, they tell him, and he recalls it's the same time Jesus told him to go home. This is the second miracle recorded by John and done by Jesus in Galilee. Jesus did some miracles in Jerusalem, but no others in Galilee, at least until now. Or John would have told us. He's not going to lie to us. Well, our conclusion is this. Have you ever been so seriously ill, or had someone in your family that survived an illness that could have been fatal? How did you feel upon your recovery, or upon their recovery? If you've had someone that's had cancer and they've survived it, or any one of a number of other things, all sorts of things going around. That's kind of one of the more obvious. And they found out that they could be recovered, or they were actually able to get healing from it. Makes you feel a whole lot of relief when it's behind you, doesn't it? You get a bad case of the flu, you feel a whole lot better when the flu has flown. Yeah. Did you see God's hand in your or that person's recovery? Did you want to tell others what God did and praise Him for His mercy and grace in bringing about that healing? It isn't the miracles that matter, but who Jesus is. So the question is, what are you doing to build that relationship with Him? Well, next week, rejection. Jesus gets it. Jesus understands it. Jesus deals with it. And it is time for our discussion questions. So you turn over to page 120. You can follow us and stay in touch with what is happening with the Getting to Know Jesus Bible Study Ministry on Plaxo, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and watch our video clips on YouTube and GodTube. Getting to Know Jesus is sponsored by New Hope Gospel Ministries. If you'd like to follow along with us and start your Getting to Know Jesus Bible Study group, or just pray for us or support our ministry, you can go to www.gettingtoknowjesus.org and find all the information that we have available for you. If you look at the lower right hand corner, there's a button where you can make a safe and secure donation to the Getting to Know Jesus Bible Study Ministry. Or you can go to the order page and order your Getting to Know Jesus books for your Bible study group. Thank you for stopping by, and keep us in your prayers and let us know how we can pray for you.